Hello, Internet. I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Timothy.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we complain about things in the video game industry. I'm just kidding, but that kind of seems to be
That's really all this
case.
one is complaining. Our last one we didn't complain.
No, I think there might be one or two that we talk about in here that are actually really good as we get to the
positives.
topics that we dance around. We're going to be talking about video game adaptations, mostly into film or TV shows. The main problem with this immediately is we're trying to transfer genres, entire mediums. Video games are interactive. You're supposed to have like a back and forth with the viewer who actually has input on what is going on. As opposed to something, not to jump too far ahead, but like Phoenix Wright has an animation, and that translates perfectly because it's a visual novel. Yeah, there is like investigative detective work to do, but you can easily put that into it. When you do something like Super Mario Brothers, we'll talk about that film later, it's obviously something that, like, I have no input on when Mario jumps and if or not he manages to succeed or what happens to the characters or if, Nathan Drake falls down instead of getting shot a million times in Uncharted. None of that's there, so you have to somehow tell a compelling story and keep someone invested just in the story segment of what the game was. That's really difficult, and it makes it much worse when the people involved in making these films don't respect or even care about the source material. That's gonna be the big problem with basically all of them we're gonna talk about today. Kim has a giant list. We wanted to do this episode a long time ago, but
there's actually so much material, and that's why we're like, we're not going to talk about all of them out there. We realize that almost every video game has an anime, and almost every video game has some kind of a manga out there. And
there's tons of adaptations.
We'll touch on them because we've seen some that do it well, and we've seen some that do it badly.
We'll try and group some together and say this is this problem.
And then there's some that have the live action movies, which I feel like is, or just movies in general, which is mostly what we're going to be covering and talking about today.
Yeah, we're going to try and group together all of the problems in general, though we'll try and praise some when we get to them. But Kim has a giant list. We're going to try and read through them. And the reason that we didn't want to do this earlier was there was always one more movie we wanted to see because it was the new relevant one. Like Uncharted was coming out. We're like, we got to see Uncharted before we do this.
Well,
and then it was the Super Mario movie. Like, we got to see that. And then of course, we got our hands on Monster Hunter from the library. Good Lord, we're going to talk about that. And we're like, we got to watch that one first because,
But I mean, we're still in that same boat right now because now the FNAF movie's coming out now, so
now it will never stop.
It's a never-ending thing.
At least, I already know that's gonna suck. I've already seen Rotten Tomatoes has, less than, 35% or something on that, which, of course, is nothing to trust, because just as easily as things get review bombed in the game industry, same happens in movies.
But you can clearly see in the trailer it goes against a lot of what the original source material was.
Oh, yeah, it
but
looks
also,
awful.
So does Security Breach, so I don't...
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So
we haven't even talked about that series on this channel, and we will try and gloss over that. So, since we were trying to gloss over it, because I know you didn't watch this movie, maybe the first one I can talk about is Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, okay,
so
go ahead.
I'm looking through Hulu. This was probably a year ago. This has been out for a while.
You watched this not too long ago, huh? Okay.
It was a while ago. Baby was sleeping, and I'm like, I'm tired. I'm just going to watch something. And so I found, apparently, they got Nicolas Cage, too. I don't know the ins and outs. They somehow got a knockoff Five Nights at Freddy's they were doing. I know they were trying to make the one that just came out now for a long time, so however it happened, I don't care. It's Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's pretty obvious they just couldn't call it that. So instead, it's Willy's Wonderland. And just as separated from the source material, Five Nights at Freddy's, let me remind you, is nightmare logic where you are trapped in a room, your doors are powered by electricity that is very, very much in short supply, and the animatronics are coming at you to try and kill you, and you can't leave until your shift is over. So it's the silliest nonsense that makes sense only in a nightmare.
Dream logic that would not make sense if you were sitting there doing it.
That's how the game works, and that's the whole premise. You go to a film, you need to be in the nightmare dream logic the whole time, but instead, no. I feel like you could make a successful film if you had, some person who had, a completely innocent job, but he had this terrible phobia of what he's working with. And as he goes to sleep, he has these nightmares, and that's, the real meat of the movie, is him trying to overcome his nightmares. Then he wakes up, goes back, and it's just Chuck E. Cheese.
It's one of those games where I feel like that interaction is important because you're trapped. You are trapped.
Yeah, and that's totally not the case here. So, very briefly, Nicolas Cage is basically playing himself, which
If you've seen Nicolas Cage, you know what Nicolas Cage
You've seen every Nicolas Cage movie if you've seen one. This guy, cool. It's like if you go in to watch a comedy movie and Adam Sandler's in it, you already know it's going to suck, and you already know exactly what you're going to get. He can only do like one flavor. So you go into this and you see Nicolas Cage, and you're like, okay, great. So he is the character who is in the video game, sort of. Except he goes around and just punches and beats the crap out of these things. Like, it's funny the very first time, but then it's like the entire film. And you're like, okay, like, can we stop? And then they realize, like, this isn't working, so they try and get, like, some teenagers to try and break into the place at night, and then they start getting attacked, because Nicolas Cage, of course, isn't, and then he has to, like, beat up the things and say, it's so stupid. And it has nothing to do, like, not even, like, the source material is almost honored there.
Yeah.
But it's
because
people
they were
who,
trying
like,
to make
enjoy the generic, like, animatronics are scary in this light kind of thing. Sure, but, like, that's all there is to it. And, like, it's almost like that was the bare minimum of research they did for this, and they were like, all right, cool, we'll hire Nicolas Cage to beat up a bunch of robots.
So then now the new FNAF movie's coming out.
Yeah.
Which they're trying to be more, they're trying to be more honest to the source material, but you see people running around in the trailers, and I'm like, at what point do you even do that? All I can ever think about is that one time when you're trying to get through the room with the ballerina and you're like crawling on the ground. But I don't even like that one.
I don't like
Sister Location. I think
whatever it was. Yeah, that one's also a lot sillier too. It's like it's trying to aim for the fact that a lot of kids got into that series quickly. Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, if I were personally like my favorite taste is 1, 2, and like maybe 4 sometimes is okay, and 3's okay too. But
yeah, I drop off big time after 2. I don't really care much anymore through that.
So yeah, that's our first big gripe. I guess is Five Nights at Freddy's movies.
Yeah, respect your source material. Now at least that one like has the right characters, you know. Like,
at least
it has the name, but of course
you see Freddy, Bonnie, Fox, Chica. You know, so, at least they're there.
But the thing is, like, here, can we kind of jump ahead to the Mario movie because that's kind of the same.
I guess that's going to be the next one.
It's kind of the same problem.
I'm just going to check off our list as we're moving along.
And we're going to try, by the way, not to spoil like any actual events that happen in any of these movies. We know a lot of them are new. I'm just gonna like try and gloss over.
A lot of them are very old.
And a lot of them are very old. Yeah, we're gonna talk about both Mario movies. So the new Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes.
You mentioned like, okay, well, people will just want to go into Five Nights at Freddy's to see Chica, Bonnie, and Freddy beat, go attack Foxy, whatever. They're just gonna go pin people down and scream and go rah, and that's all you really want. You go into a Super Mario Brothers movie, you just want to see Mario jump around, and you want to see him collect coins and stomp on Goombas
Bowser.
And throw fireballs. That's all you expect. That's all you want, right?
It's Mario itself. The game is a very simple.
Yeah, Bowser kidnapped Peach. Go get her.
Exactly.
That's the
There's
whole
no
thing.
story.
No. Your princess is in another castle 7 times, and then you get the correct one. That's the whole game. No story there. And that's fine. So when they're trying to translate it into a film, and for better or worse, they go with Illumination, the Minions people. I think like their animation quality is really well done. It's like DreamWorks and Pixar. They can do really good animation. The way that they do their slapstick kitty fart joke comedy, I don't really care for. But of course, that's just not targeting me. This is a kid's movie.
Yeah, but our toddler was kind of out of the room even after one point.
Yeah, and I tested this. I played it twice for her, and she did not care. And that is like all rainbows and sparkles and like constantly like I like to compare it to like Shrek. Like if you pay attention to like the pacing in Shrek, it's so fast. Like people, like you run into a new person. For example, going back to Mario. Mario runs into Princess Peach for the first time, and in like 15 seconds, he convinces her that they need to go together to go rescue his brother who Bowser captured. She doesn't know anything about this guy. She just accepts everything and goes. Because the movie's got to get a pace going. Kids aren't going to be interested in watching 2 characters talk for a while and explain their circumstances with each other. Mario's not concerned that he just ran into another human in here, and Peach doesn't seem to really care either. They're just like, all right, let's go. And, you just got to move on quickly so you can get to your Rainbow Road on the Mario Kart level. And then you can go to your Donkey Kong. And you throw in as many references and Easter eggs as possible. This movie is kind of researching what failed with a lot of other video game films, I think. And in that sense, I think it's pretty good. I do have a lot of issues with it, though.
For me, being, overstimulated by things. I think it was a little much sometimes.
Yeah, it's like a forced ADD trip.
It was like a lot.
Way too much, way too fast.
Yeah, our toddler only sat through maybe 30 minutes of it, and then she was out.
She kind of came and went after that, yeah. And then as soon as it got to the Mario Kart part, she was totally out. Just not even paying attention in a completely different room.
Which is surprising, because honestly, we wanted to watch that movie with her, because we thought, she's going to really enjoy this.
Yeah, it's Illumination. It's garbage.
Well, no. She likes, these colors. She knows Mario.
She's 2. Yeah, and she knows the characters, yeah.
So we're thinking, she's going to really like it. And then she didn't, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah,
what's
surprising.
Not working here. But then you realize as you're watching the movie, it's a lot of Easter eggs for people who have played all the games.
Which is super weird. This is one of... I say weird because this should be a staple in everything that gets an adaptation. Just hide little Easter eggs for people to appreciate all the time. Mario's playing Kid Icarus, and for some reason, in the background... you can hear Charles Martinet's character voice, which was disgusting. We could probably get into the voices later. Is playing an old man who was actually playing Jumpman, a in-universe version of Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong exists and they can't call it that.
They're at the Punch-Out Pizzeria.
Yeah, the Punch-Out, all of that stuff. We could go on forever. There's so many Easter eggs in that movie. And of course, I'm watching it the first time. I know that. But at the same time, how come... when it comes time to do the music, I have to listen to AC/DC and Take On Me, when I know, and I've heard the soundtrack, there's actual music renditions they've done of remixes of Mario stages that was fit to go with those scenes, and then they instead threw in licensed music. So nobody watched that to hear Thunderstruck.
Here's my thought on it, is that a lot of people, they were trying to appease 2 audiences at once,
I don't know
they
who...
No, I'm saying they're trying to appease 2 different ones. The... teenagers and stuff are going to like the AC/DC, and then the kids are going to like the bright colorful colors, and then the older generation is going to like all the Easter eggs.
I am not sold that anyone actually wanted to walk into a Mario movie and listen to that. But now Jack Black making unique music and playing Bowser, he's the best character in the entire film. No question. Everyone else is kind of playing themselves as the character. Chris Pratt is a pretty terrible Mario. He's super soulless and lifeless. I didn't like him at all. Peach also didn't sound like Peach at all. Peach, we were actually talking about this the other day. If you watch the Subspace Emissary cutscenes, Peach can still be dainty and prissy princess and still really funny and engaging in a movie. Instead, they tried to go the opposite route and try and make her super tough with a battle axe and she's the real hero, and Mario is just kind of this fumbling idiot.
I was talking about they were trying to hit too many different target audiences.
Yeah, I still don't agree with you.
Where I think they were trying to do too many different target audiences. Whereas if they just did one where they're let's just focus on the gamers. Let's make the gamers
slightly
happy.
Disappoint everyone.
And then if you do that, then you'll get the rest of everybody else will follow suit. And one of my biggest complaints about a lot of these movies is we don't need origin stories for big name characters.
That's usually the superhero problem.
Stop making Spider-Man.
Stop making Spider-Man start over. And Uncle Ben has died enough times. Quit killing Uncle Ben.
But really, it keeps happening in video games. It's the people at the studio never played the game, so they're I don't know what Mario is, but the rest of the world is going to know.
An even worse version of this is another huge, piece of the pie of video game adaptations is take them and put them into the real world. Because once again, the people making these films can't relate because they don't know the source material. And they're but what if Sonic the Hedgehog was in the real world? And he could run fast, I
would have been so much happier at the beginning of
Have we transitioned to Mario or to Sonic?
No, we still got to finish up our Mario rant here.
Yeah.
So I would have been so much happier in the Mario movie if it would have started out like all the Mario video games where he gets a letter from Princess Peach and he's already in the Mushroom Kingdom.
I've baked a cake for you.
Come visit me, and then she gets kidnapped by Bowser. That is...
Yeah, and he gets separated from Luigi, that's fine. Telling 2 stories at once is a staple in good storytelling anyway. So I've thought oh, good, they split up Luigi from Mario early on.
So we're going to tell Luigi.
Do a Luigi's Mansion story. No, he's locked up the entire movie. And I'm like, oh, okay,
with
like,
a really
fine.
depressing Luma.
That Luma was, it's more Illumination humor, but that's fine. but still, like, yeah, splitting them up, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, they had to cut a ton of content to cram, they wanted to, like, oh, I want to do a Mario Kart segment. Mario Kart is the best-selling game on the Switch. We have to put on Mario Kart.
I get that. That's fine.
It's a game movie about selling more games, and it did. It sold a lot of games.
Like, that doesn't bother me, though, where they're just trying to splice in, like, the Donkey Kong section, and they're trying to splice in, the Mario Kart that does not bother me as much as, like, why did we have to get all this extra music?
Yeah, well, we go to this.
Do we need to start a new origin story?
Beautifully illustrated and animated Donkey Kong Mario Kart theme area, and we're listening to Take On Me, and I'm like, Donkey Kong has so much good music. What are you doing? And then even more insulting, like, they properly, and this is another thing, they properly credit all of the licensed music in their credits, and then when it comes to the DK rap, they legit just stole this from Donkey Kong 64, and they just credit it from Donkey Kong 64. Grant Kirkhope is a real human being.
And he's a very sweet person.
He is a wonderful person, and he loves eggnog. And I'm sure he's very excited that it's becoming eggnog season.
So let's just kind of use this to transition to the other Mario adaptation.
Yeah, that's probably better than the Sonic one.
Yeah, let's just keep going with the same franchise
here. What happened
here.
last time? I think that's the other problem, the other direction of, like, the current Mario movie is a reaction to what happened last time. And what happened last time, have you seen this?
I have not.
I've seen so good.
Of it.
We gotta watch this. It's so good. So basically, not only is it live action, which is a huge part of the problem, and the characters playing the video game characters, I don't remember who said this, but one of them, I think it was Mario's character, said he didn't even realize this was based on a video game until he was, like, done with the movie.
Okay, are we talking about, this is my question, what came first?
The Mario Super Show?
Show or the
I'm not
movie?
positive. I'm pretty sure the Super Show came first.
Okay, I just want to know if one, like, influenced the other.
Not really. No. It's a mess. So everything is all live action, and of course we have to take them into the real world. So everything's, like, dark and gritty, and they got, like, huge plumber's wrenches, and Goombas are just, like, huge bodybuilder guys with tiny little heads. It's the silliest thing. None of it has any relation to the games at all. And of course, even by this point, we're just looking at NES games. There is still Princess Peach is captured by a giant turtle monster, and Mario/Luigi have to go and save her, and you see what the world is like. None of that is in this film. And the film is, like, really funny for being a terrible adaptation and going into it knowing it's gonna suck. But the thing is, Mario was, like, on top of the game industry then, as it kind of still is now, which is amazing. But this movie, it's so bad. But it's, like, hilarious how bad it is. Like, so Mario and Luigi get stuck in an elevator, and they realize they're in there with a ton of Goombas. Which, of course, they can't... There's no jumping or anything in this movie. But, like, to get out of the situation, they decide to dance with them to the elevator music, which then gets them all swaying and dancing, and they stealthily get out of the elevator when it stops. It's outrageous nonsense like that. The whole thing. So, it's a good thing that I think that movie failed so damn hard that we got the new one, but the new one is, like, overshooting in the opposite direction.
Yeah, but the thing is now the new one has succeeded so tremendously
in terms of profit
that we're gonna get a sequel.
Oh yeah. So. And we'll likely see other franchises too, which is okay. Like, I think others will do better in terms of a story. Like, Legend of Zelda has so much more than Mario does in terms of trying to tell a story, even though it's sort of the same thing, but, like, the world of Zelda is fleshed out when Mario's is just hit the yellow block and a mushroom comes out. Legend of Zelda, you can, like, go into a random town and, like, find all sorts of interesting characters with weird situations and weird magical
Is that going to move us into this next adaptation that we want to talk about then?
Sure. Well, I mean, unless you want to talk about the Super Show, because you mentioned it.
I did mention the Super Show because I had thought about it because the new Super Mario Brothers movie makes a reference to it. It opens with a reference to it.
Yeah, it's playing, I wonder if they credited that properly. I think they did, because the only thing, it sticks out like a sore thumb in the end credits when you see the Donkey Kong rap go by, and they just say from Donkey Kong 64. the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is half live action, where it's like a kid's like Mr. Rogers kind of thing, where Mario and Luigi live action come out and like talk to kids and they do stuff. It's a comedy
show. They're trying to make reference to like a comedy hour thing. So like,
yeah, it's weird.
It's like you splice in like
but then it goes
live action
to animation,
with the animation,
which is not terrible. Like as just a cartoon, like comparing it to the Legend of Zelda one.
okay.
Legend of Zelda one is horrible, and it's funny how horrible it is.
It's really bad.
Excuse me, princess. I don't know where you get any of that from the games, but whatever they did. The Mario one is a lot closer. Like, it's honestly kind of close to the Illumination film in terms of, like, what it's doing.
It's fine. You know, there are a bunch of little shorts. And...
yeah, what's super weird is, of course, the really corny opening, which they use in the movie. And then the live-action dudes. It was just... it's really uncomfortable.
We're in Brooklyn!
Yeah, we're in Brooklyn.
So
I guess if we're in that same vein of like those old cartoons.
Yeah, well, I mean, you brought up the Legend of Zelda, let's just bump right into that one. TV show.
It really sucks too. Honestly, like it's at least like it has its source material. Like Ganon is, you know, as a cartoon, you're doing like the He-Man thing. You've got the Skeletor-like villain who wants to, you know, constantly every single episode send new forces that the bumbling idiot hero, because of course he can't be that competent. He's the silent protagonist.
We already know he's not competent. If you've seen some of those videos online, we know it.
Yeah, but he's anything but silent in that TV show. He will not shut up. And later enough, I think this show actually spawned from the Mario Super Show. Like, it would actually show up in, like, a second half of it or something like that. It was kind of weird. And I think eventually it became its own thing. But it's not good at all.
We made an awful decision. Well, okay, I had never seen the Zelda TV show till, like...
I kind of forced you.
2 years ago. Yeah, okay, so we're having to stay up late for a baby, right? And we're like, let's watch some terrible TV. And we just decided to watch...
game adaptations.
All these game adaptation TV shows.
The Donkey Kong show. Donkey Kong Country.
I watched so much of that as a child. I did not need to see more of it.
That is rough. You know,
we're gonna just lead right into that.
I'd say the only thing worse than Seth Rogen Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Country.
Seth Rogen Donkey Kong did not bother me. It didn't bother me.
Oh, I hated it. I hated it so much. The thing is, the Donkey Kong Country TV show back in the day was very similar to the country game, where it's like graphically like amazing at the time.
Right.
It was, I think, I'm not positive about this, the first animated 3D TV show to use motion capture.
I think so.
It's like really ahead of its time and doing crazy stuff. Unfortunately, since it's maybe the first, it looks awful.
It's Uncanny Valley.
Oh, it's terrifying. Really uncomfortable, especially when you have, like, you know, Diddy Kong's mono eyeball thing and you're trying to do, like, motion capture with lips and stuff. And
Candy Kong is terrifying.
Oh, Candy Kong is... yikes. But I'm sure people got off to that back then. Even K. Rool is frightening. It's the realistic teeth inside of Donkey Kong's mouth.
K. Rool bothers me the least out of all the characters.
So, like, as an adaptation, though, it's fine. I think, like,
You're not... okay, but the thing is, with a TV show and a video game, it's one overarching plot. You're trying to get your bananas back.
Right, and you can do that forever. Mario, you can do that forever. Link, you can do that forever.
In the TV show, Donkey Kong Country, every single episode, King K. Rool has to find a way to steal all the bananas.
Yeah, I know.
And then Donkey Kong has to redo the whole... with Diddy Kong.
You gotta recapture the princess every episode. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And then sometimes they had to do some random plots that don't involve that as much. Just have breaks from it. So it just doesn't... it doesn't work. It kept me entertained as a kid sometimes.
To try and get us back into the movies, I think a good transition here would be like, let's get into... Kirby.
Do we have any other
Kirby,
like TV shows? Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I was going to say let's talk about the Sonic one, because then we can get to the Sonic movie that I talked about before.
Oh,
so the Kirby Right Back At Ya is 4 kids once again kind of sticking their big stinky dick in the back of some anime/TV show that would have been fine.
Is not an evil character, and that's not even that's not even 4 kids doing that. That is
that's just the show being messed up.
Material.
Yeah, 4 Kids makes notoriously horrible openings. They dub things terribly and outright change the content sometimes of what it is to try and shift the audience. When Kirby is just a cute little pink ball that sucks up stuff, gets abilities, and defeats bad guys. You can do that forever, and for the most part, that's fine. The only thing that's bad about this show is the 4 Kids stuff, where it's like the
dubbing. I don't know. I have a lot of problems with even original material of like how King
like,
K
what do you do
rule,
with DDD?
No, I'm
what
sorry,
do you,
King
what do you do with
DDD is
DDD?
written, like,
Like, he has
what
to, like, go on some weird
and
TV
he's got,
show
like,
in order to buy
weird
villains.
snail, like,
I'm fine with them making up new characters. Lolo and Lala from Adventures of Lolo are in there because, you know, whatever. They were bosses in Kirby, so I guess they're canon to Kirby now, like, for sure.
For some reason, the warp stars and a tree. I don't... Where is Wispy Woods in this show?
You gotta remember, this stuff is like so old that they're kind of inventing the canon as they go. This is not exactly in TV shows, but something that did this is the Metroid manga. They made a manga to go alongside Metroid Zero Mission that we still kind of consider canon today, and stuff keeps referencing it, even though it was never translated. So sometimes when people are in charge of making, you know, a movie or TV shows, they will, like, inadvertently create something that will become canon later.
The Kirby TV show isn't as old as the Mario and the Zelda ones.
And Kirby never invented any of that stuff. It just did stupid things constantly.
It's just like with the Kirby show, there was enough source material at that point to where it shouldn't have been so all over the place.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, at least, like, as a kid watching it, each episode Kirby turns into some new form, and you always want to see what Kirby's gonna do, and he beats the bad thing. And, you know, King DDD shakes his fist, I'll get you next time, even though that's not his character at all.
That's totally not his character.
No. And, you know, Meta Knight at least is sort of a faithful version of what his character should be, but I think the real problem with doing a Kirby show is you don't have a consistent Kirby villain. Every Kirby villain, like, it sets it up to make it look like it's DDD, but it's never DDD. He's just a bumbling idiot who pretends he's the king and he's not. No one respects him as the king, which is another big problem with the Kirby show. Everyone actually thinks he's the king and he's not. So you can't really have, like, you know, what is it, like Darkness or all the Eldritch Abomination, like things that destroy planets that Kirby actually defeats in the end of all of the Kirby games. You can't just keep bringing those up.
It doesn't look, like, you look at it side by side with one of the games,
Nightmare.
and it just doesn't look, right? There's Nightmare, you know, there's Marks, there's all these characters.
You could do it, but I feel like, once again, they chose not to, and they lent towards DDD thinking he was a villain. Once again, I don't think they understood the source material.
But I think Sakurai advised on it, so I don't think we can say
that. Yeah, I'm not positive. He really, like, leaned away from Kirby as it kept going.
I didn't want to talk about this show too much, but, like, my biggest indicator was our daughter really liked watching us play Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
Oh,
so
yeah,
we
she
thought,
loves that game.
Let's play Kirby right back at ya.
She's in my review for Playing With Myself, shameless plug.
Let's
loving it.
We're bringing up, you know, Kirby right back at ya. Let's let her watch that. She'll enjoy it. Was not into it because Kirby is only on the screen, like, less than 20% of the time.
Barely there.
So
it's instead it's these weird, like, kid things that they invented for the show, and it's mostly them the whole time. Because Kirby doesn't talk, but you don't need your character to speak in order to tell a story.
Oh, yeah.
The entirety of Subspace Emissary is set with no words, and that's still, like, a interesting story.
And now our toddler loves watching that.
She loves that, because it's different. It's a storytelling problem. But that's a
we gotta
keep
moving on. I didn't think we were gonna talk that much about Kirby.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
That TV show. Which one? There's a lot.
See, they're all just meh. It's the same kind of problem.
I really liked the 3D animated one a little bit better. But...
I don't really remember that one as much. I remember the 2D one, and it was just fine.
We do get some great memes out of them. That's for sure.
It's fine. It's nothing really.
It's not terrible.
I was really just using, like, okay, there was the Sonic one. Let's get into the movies,
okay,
though,
now let's
because the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, now we're getting into one of the bigger problems, and this is just the first real one where we're going to focus on this. For the love of God, stop looking at a character who has no place being in the real world and put them in the real world. We learned this in Sonic 06. It was terrible.
That was terrifying.
What on earth were they thinking? 1, for that game, but 2, for this movie. The original version of the movie we cannot pass up without talking about Ugly Sonic, because it was heinous. The realistic teeth inside of his face with the 2 eyeballs.
Some people think that we're terrible because we've bullied a company into changing their design, but no,
we
they're
saved
trying
them money.
to a bit. Yeah. Okay, so we complained about it so hard
because
we're the audience that they're trying to hit.
They knew they were making a huge mistake. But the thing is, I feel like it was really telling already to see that even get so far as to... They made Happy Meal toys. They made all sorts of stuff, like, preparing for this to happen. Posters, everything. They had to scrap it all and start over just because they changed the face of the character. Oh my goodness, that had to have been so much money.
Changed the main phase of the character.
Yeah, but there would have never been a sequel had they not done this.
But, you know, and once again, it's the same thing with the Mario. I do not need the origin story for Sonic. I don't. Everybody knows this character. Don't pretend.
Nobody cares. You know, I wanted to just see a little blue hedgehog run around a green hill zone and save monster, like destroy monsters and save little animals that pop out because some evil scientist is putting cute little animals in robots. That's it. And that does not happen, by the way.
There's no cute animals.
No. And how come you have to get to, like, basically the end credits to finally see, like, an actual Sonic level?
Yeah. It's outrageous. It's, once again, they're taking that source material, they're throwing it out the window, and they're doing their own thing.
I hate this. So this is basically people in Hollywood thinking that they have to bring this audience, not to the video game audience, but they're using it as a source of inspiration. And as if someone, like, brought them a novel.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you give me, like, Holes, for example. Like, they made a movie about holes. And, like, you read the book and you're like, this is, like, almost totally different. There's, like, so much other stuff that happened. I'm just a random... Think of, like, any book. People will always say, like, the book is better, right? And you're looking through the book and you're like, this is, like, totally different than what I watched in the movie. I remember the biggest one that I watched was the 4th Harry Potter movie, because I read that book first. And that's
weird.
That book is gargantuan. And then you watch the film, and it's so fast-paced, but it's also, like, when it takes its time, you're like, you could have been doing this really cool thing that was in the book that you just completely ignored.
Yeah.
So you like, screw up source material because the people at Hollywood are making these movies not for the audience who read the original / played the game. They're making it for themselves and people who they think are just going to watch it in the big red carpet Hollywood stage.
That doesn't even make sense in the end. Because
it doesn't.
Because the people who...
It's so pompous and vain. They should never be thinking that.
The people who are familiar with the title are going to be the people who are going to want to watch it. It's not going to be the random people...
Well, that's why Elimination Mario movie did so well. Because everyone knows Mario.
Everybody knows Mario. So it's not... So why'd you have to do an origin story thing?
The real question was, why did you have to cast a bunch of celebrities to play the characters?
I don't get it.
For one, half the cast should have been Charles Martinet. The man's right there. And he's even in the movie, and he does a stellar job with what he does. It was more insulting hearing him there, like, yep, there he is, doing an outstanding job, playing an actual character, whatever. Trying to take this stuff into the real world, like Sonic, I watched that first movie, and I was so... I didn't even want to finish it. It was so bad.
Well, I mean, you don't like, I don't know any movies you like, to be honest, but...
I like movies. I do like movies.
You like 2 movies.
I like a few. I could go through it and probably listen, but that's not what this is about. Most video game adaptations are bad. The problem is I really care about video games, and when I see people destroying source material, I get upset.
And then of
course, when you try and make a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and instead of seeing Sonic do Sonic things, I see him in a bar doing slow-motion dodging in a bar fight. I'm like, what are you doing? What is this? And this is supposed to be, like, the meat of the movie.
I think what bothers me more with these adaptations is when you do hook the audience that is not a gamer, and they see it, and they really like it, and then they make more of that crap.
Right,
or that person who's really into not the original source comes and talks to you about it, and you want to punch them in the face.
Where are you leading with this one?
Witcher.
Oh my god.
I just had to lead a segue into the next thing. So
poor Henry Cavill. But anyway, so if we are going to move to The Witcher.
I was just thinking about The Witcher because you were talking about, like, who are you targeting with this?
Yeah, who were you targeting? So the beginning of The Witcher, when they started announcing this, I was ecstatic for this idea, even though Netflix was doing it, and Netflix has the memes where, like, you know, they cannot design anything. Their outfits and costumes are so cheap, it looks so bad.
And it's also just like a running joke that anybody can get a show on Netflix.
I know. They're not going to put any real money in it, and the people who make it are just as much of pompous imbeciles
Which is sad
as the people making the movies.
Cavill.
I know, because first of all, I was worried when they hired him. It was another one of those, you're just going for a celebrity, not someone who's, like, going to do this well. But it turns out he actually really loves The Witcher, and I think he approached them. He went to them saying, I would love to do this. Please, let me be Geralt. I know this character. I want to be this character. This sounds so much fun. And, of course, The Witcher, another thing, this translates perfectly to a TV show. not only if you're just doing, like, the books, which they did, that is a source of inspiration.
Right, they focused on the books, so...
Though we'll get there. It got completely destroyed. So you're focusing on the books as your source of inspiration. You also could have done it from the games themselves and just say, like, each episode is like a contract or something, and then, like, slowly move around some greater story, and of course try and do, like, a Game of Thrones thing, which is what they did, instead of trying to tell a Witcher story. Which also ruined it.
That's the biggest thing. But then, that's when you got those people who liked that gritty, like, fantasy of
because
Game of Thrones.
Because they've never seen The Witcher, never read it.
But Game of Thrones has the same problem where it's the people who read the books are like, what is this?
It's a freaking mess. So the real problem with The Witcher, even though this is a winning formula, you have a grade A actor who knows his part and is willing to bend and twist arms to make sure that people are true to the source material. It's still... I could even tell from the first episode, the pilot, that this was not going to be good.
We could not pick up after the pilot. It
took me a long time to get back after the pilot because it was so bad. And for the record, we've mentioned this, but at this point, I have read almost all of the Witcher novels and played all 3 of the Witcher games, the main ones, like to completion, a couple multiple times. And I know you're like halfway through that much. And still, like, we both, from different perspectives, were watching this and for different reasons found this to just be abysmal. But people who don't know The Witcher and don't know how much it's screwing up Ciri's story and what horrible ramifications it's going to have later because the people writing it...
They started making up things and was I watching the second season and I'm like,
God,
what are they making up? They're making up stuff. And I came to you and I was like, is this in the books? And you were like, no. And we're like, where did this information come from?
They're making it up.
And that's why...
And without spoiling things, killing characters that you actually can't for the sake of the story to happen. So much it's completely disrespecting its source material. And this is kind of like a Walking Dead scenario where... You know, the comics exist, and the comics are all about people being surprised at things that they never expected to happen, as a good story does. And then when you try to translate it to a TV show, of course, the pompous people who are writing it, and occasionally the same writer who made The Walking Dead did it himself, they would jump in and say, okay, well, what if we added completely different things and had this thing that was a surprising thing happens to another character instead? I'm like, okay, but it's not the same thing. And me, as a person who was a fan of the original, just feel like kind of jerked around, and that's what The Witcher does. It's not only jerking you around, not in a way that makes you feel like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. It's more like, that sucks. What are you thinking? That doesn't make any sense.
That's why Henry Cavill broke his contract.
Yeah, he was like, no, this is not only like, are your effects terrible? That should be really
telling,
And he kept like breaking his own crappy suit, and they had to make. I wonder how many crappy suits they had to build for him because he kept ruining the terrible quality.
Them, which is why later in episodes he's just wearing a shirt most of the time instead of armor.
He's just wearing a freaking shirt because they can't do it. And it's a medallion. They can't even get the medallion right. It's always looked like. Oh my God, it's like $10. I bought one for myself, okay?
I think the most insulting thing to me, just to wrap up The Witcher, is when you buy a novel and it says...
Oh, no.
Based on the Netflix series.
Yeah, it's based on... the actual novels that we own have a stamp on them that say, like, based on a Netflix adaptation. Of course, that's wrong. It's backwards.
Doesn't say... I don't know if it says based or something like that.
It's misinformation if you don't know what it is.
The order of the information is books, video game, then the TV show.
Yeah, which we covered in depth in a giant Witcher episode. So the Witcher one in particular, like, we did get through it. I got through like halfway. I finished season 1. I got halfway through season 2, and I was like, I got
almost to the end of season 2, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like, they're making something else up instead of the conjunction of spheres.
Characters are not acting like themselves. The story is just completely messed up. And it's because the people on top of it, this is a familiar thing that's going to keep coming up in this episode, the people who are in charge think that they are better and they're going to tell some greater thing than what the source material is when people are going for the source material.
I think that's a good lead into our next movie, which would be Monster Hunter.
Oh my God. Before we do that, though,
before
we do that... Can we please do the one other Netflix one I want to talk about before I forget about it?
Okay, let's talk about the other Netflix one.
Okay, Castlevania. This is actually decent. Like, it's... Okay, most of the
There's not enough castle in Castlevania. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, keep watching it, there will be. But
it's kind of boring, actually.
It is kind of boring. But that's the thing, like, it's really slow-paced. The animation, it's one of those shows that you watch, it's a Netflix show, where you can tell that, like, 30 seconds to a minute of the entire episode is where the whole budget went, and they worked on making that look good. And sometimes it's like an unflattering scene, not even like a huge high octane like battle. Sometimes it's just like, you know, they go in and raid like a witch's lab and like, you know, break some bottles and like arrest her. And that was the whole budget. And the rest of it, people are like very statically not moving and talking to each other. It's Castlevania.
Not even in the castle yet, Alex. We've watched like 10 episodes.
Well, I watched more than you. They do go into the castle. But even still, when they go in there, like, it's kind of like the Witcher problem where they're, like, making up stuff. Like, I think Camilla, like, the giant bleeding eye face is just a woman. Like,
well, yes, but if you look in original folklore, that is the case.
Sure, but it's Castlevania. Okay.
Yeah, but Castlevania's folklore is like all over the place. So even when
it's like Final Fantasy, where it's like just mixing a bunch of stuff that it wants to. But the thing is, when it does that, it creates its own thing. Like Shiva in Final Fantasy is a very particular thing. Yeah,
it's very different from the
actual folklore Shiva. So when you do, you know, different characters in Castlevania, I expect them to be the Castlevania versions. You know, or at least like try and tell the story that makes sense. I know that this is kind of like a Mario Princess Peach situation where like we do the same thing a million times, and I don't care that, you know, Alucard and a different Belmont meet up in different ways that don't make any sense, and Dracula, whatever. Do an interesting story with these characters, and for the most part, it's written well. It's just not animated in an interesting way.
Okay, the animation also, you can tell they're just like cutting frames out when they're animating. Like they're missing
very low
frames.
Budget.
But I would rather watch that over The Witcher show.
Totally. Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like, it's decent. It's the only problems with it are just that it doesn't have enough budget to make it look and be as snazzy as it should.
And because it should be a little quicker paced, I think. Like, yeah, let's speed it up a little.
Yeah, you want to see him like run through an area, like guard Maria, destroy some mummies and some bats and stuff, and fight a giant two-headed
fight some monsters,
flea man bouncing around.
You know, a naked woman coming out of a flower.
Yeah, you got to see boobs, actual nipples too. Castlevania does that. Yeah, and multiple times.
But, you know, not as bad as The Witcher.
Yeah, not as bad as the nipples in The Witcher.
But it's not great.
That's another thing. Like, The Witcher, like, yes, there's, like, sexual relations and stuff, and, you know, it's very gory at times. But the TV show is leaning into it intentionally to try and be Game of Thrones and try and, like, shift it into something that it isn't.
Right.
And that's not what The Witcher is. And I think that's the main disconnect of not understanding the storytelling of the original, of why people like it. If you don't understand why people like it, you should not be making it.
So yes, the people who do not understand what they're making.
I was making a wonderful transition for you.
That's why I was trying to get to that transition then. Okay, we're moving on to Monster Hunter and Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil.
Street Fighter? Did you used to do Street Fighter? It's another one of the Capcom ones. Resident Evil. Yeah, the Resident Evil films. Basically, anything that Paul W.S. Anderson has made. This guy writes, directs, and produces game movies that he knows nothing about.
And they keep hiring him.
And they keep hiring this buffoon. This guy consistently, like, you know the reason that people say that game movie adaptations are terrible? This man made the stigma, and he keeps making them. And the biggest problem is it's Capcom. Stop it, Capcom! They have been doing it for so long, and like he's never, and I will stand by this. This man has never made an okay film. He only makes the worst films I've ever seen in my life.
I'll enjoy Mortal Kombat for some giggles.
But that's not why you watch it. It's the same reason a Super Mario Brothers movie, like the original one. You would watch that because it's like, this is so funny. Like, Yoshi is a velociraptor. like you watch it and you're laughing at how stupid it is. You're not like watching this to see like, okay, I want to see a Monster Hunter movie.
So should we try to cover like these movies all together then at the same time?
It's the same problems each time.
It's the same problem with all the movies, but I do want to start this. When we grabbed the Monster Hunter movie after, like, 3 years after it came out, I saw it at the library, and I thought, I would love to see Gore Magala on the big screen, because he's only ever been on portables.
Wouldn't you? There wasn't...
That was my thing!
There was a trailer that actually showed Gore Magala and Rathalos... No, and Rathalos fighting in a strip mall, of course, because it had to be in the real world. But still, it was a really cool animation, because Monster Hunter World didn't exist at the time that we saw these trailers.
Right.
This movie took forever to come out, by the way.
But that was my thing. That's what started me. I was like, I'll give it a go. I want to see Gore Magala on the big screen because he's a really cool monster. He's only been on portable. How disappointed was I?
Oh my god. This movie, like, if we're just going to talk, like, if, okay.
Okay, but
I'm going to say this. The Monster Hunter movie is not only the worst video game adaptation in general that I've ever seen, it's one of the worst movies I have ever seen.
It's a bad movie.
It's a bad movie. Even if I, like, scrub everything that I know about Monster Hunter, the actual film itself is just trash. So
why do they spend so much time on Nursilla?
It's not just that. So this is another one of those problems, like, we gotta bring it into the real world somehow.
Like, why?
So, of course, we have a bunch of characters who don't fit in the Monster Hunter universe whatsoever. And one problem that this kind of bleeds into the others, though, for the most part, his other movies are trying to be in universe, but, like, Resident Evil kind of already is in the real world. You know, like
Mortal Kombat, I mostly remember the movie being in a desert. So
I know it's just whatever. So I've also seen like
kind of in the real world.
I've also seen the Silent Hill movie. And
is that him too?
I don't think so.
I don't think it is.
One way to tell that
it's written okay, so
it's fine. But the thing is, like that kind of translates better to a decent movie. Silent Hill does.
It was an okay movie. I don't hate it.
But to getting to this guy's.
We
garbage
made fun
fest.
of it a lot when we watched it.
You can tell you're watching one of his movies because he will routinely, almost every single time, I'm not positive about this, he will cast his wife as the lead character, who is not a good actress, by the way. Like, I can't stand it. I think you could tolerate her a lot more than I can. I'm just more bothered that I know this is the face. Like, okay, he's the one behind the scenes ruining all these games that I love. She's the one standing out front, bold face, making up new characters that don't exist or ruining previous ones. It's terrible. She's consistently, like, trying to play this tough female action hero when that does not fit the source material at all. In Monster Hunter, she is this military commander who, in the very beginning, they have sexist comments again, like, I think she makes them, but, like, the movie was, like, on the very first day it was out, there were articles calling out how terrible this was and insensitive the actual movie was, and said, like, it's written like it came out in the 90s. That it's like, come on, gender equality is a thing now. Can we stop? But, and he wrote it about his wife. What? This guy. Anyway, so it's this group of army soldiers who, for no reason, and it is never explained, pulled into some weird space-time continuum tornado, and they are now suddenly in the Monster Hunter world, which, if you cut this part out completely and just focused on the Monster Hunter people, which are there, by the way, there are actual characters from Monster Hunter.
Not that many of them.
No, there's not many, but there's, like, you know, characters from Monster Hunter World, like the Handler's there. They have the Admiral guy, and they sail a ship on the desert.
It doesn't help that Monster Hunter is never written very well either.
But, like, the thing is, it's a cinematic thing. And just like the Super Mario Brothers, you could do it cinematically and make it interesting. This movie fails at even that. Because it's, for the most of this movie is just her, like, survivalist trying to not die.
Right.
Not from, like, monsters coming in. The monsters are rarely there. Occasionally, Diablos jumps out of the desert and goes, "Rawr!" and hides back down.
But the thing is, you start out the film, any Monster Hunter fan, you're sitting there and you're watching people in a desert.
Like, real humans run around with guns and army equipment in a Jeep.
I'm just talking about, you're in a desert, and as a Monster Hunter fan, you're like, oh, here comes Jin Meringue, you know?
Yeah, Jin Meringue. You're expecting Jin Meringue. Diablos.
Nursilla.
No, it's Diablos.
Well,
Diablos
there's Diablos, and then there's Nursilla.
There's a total of 3 monsters, I think, in this entire movie.
And Gormagala gets
Except for this one shot, there's, like, an Apatonaut
seconds.
that walks by or something. But
yeah. Some
oh, yeah. Gormagala's, like,
I think
he's there for, like,
I thought there were Iodrums.
Half a second or something.
Like
I don't know. It's such a small window. And basically half of this film, and I do mean half of it, is her by herself, just like the Resident Evil films, trying to survive against poisonous spiders. And the spiders are basically baby Nursillas and look nothing like Nursilla.
Yeah.
And there's, like, tons of them, and she meets up with one hunter. The plot also doesn't make any sense. Like, is he trying to save her? Because they start fighting constantly. They're just, like, punching with no music. I thought that was hilarious. Where they're just, like, scuffling on the dirt and
you're
getting
really into the... I was like, we gotta keep this time pacing going, but you hate this movie.
This movie's so horrible! It's so freaking horrible! And then, of course, finally, when Rathalos shows up, he's like 10 times the size that he actually should be, and they're shooting with guns. Actual guns that they have, not bow guns, and they do nothing. But then people, like, hunters run out and they shoot a bowgun and it just detonates and he's, oh no! This nut shell casing is so painful.
I have heard you complaining about this movie ever since we saw it. It's never ending for you. It's like a nightmare.
The worst part, now, we all knew it was going to suck. I went into it knowing this is going to be terrible.
Oh, I brought something else to work on while I was watching.
We knew it was going to be terrible. And I still left this movie like, I was expecting like a 1 out of 10 movie. This was so bad, I need to reassess what it means to be a
bad
1.
Movie.
This is the worst. Oh god, just narratively, it's disgusting.
You know, that one Superman movie. I thought that was like a 1 for me.
Poor Henry Cavill. Yeah, the Henry Cavill Superman is
that was
so
bad movie.
So bad. But no, the Monster Hunter movie is just abysmal. The Resident Evil one is like, no, there's a bunch of Resident Evil ones.
Okay,
they're
we're just talking
better.
about the first one.
Yeah, well, I've seen a couple of the others.
Yeah,
they're slightly better, but like the thing is, better than Monster Hunter. And the thing is, Resident Evil is already a campy, stupid action kind of thing that he wants to do.
Maybe that's the problem, because Resident Evil, he's not having to create a universe. Like, it's just happening in this world. He's
also creating a stupid excuse to... He wanted to make a military version of his wife in a desert fighting. And someone was like, no, make a Monster Hunter movie. And he's like, well, no, I'm going to make this movie that I wanted to make, and I'm just going to make a Diablo show up every once in a while.
And I don't remember too much from the Mortal Kombat movie. I remember some really bad campy lines, which
he also was inventing characters for the Resident Evil movie for his wife to play.
Was,
there are plenty of characters she could have played, and like, why didn't you tell like the Resident Evil Mansion story? That would have been amazing. Do it with Claire,
they did too.
If you wanted to do it like that.
They tried to do too. It was a little bit of a mess, but.
It's
a horrible mess.
They're all so terrible.
Okay, I'm counting that as we have talked about all of those terrible movies. Is there any more that you need to add that will...
I don't know. They're all just so
we were talking about Resident... I'm not gonna... We kind of mentioned Street Fighter 2. I don't know if Street Fighter is part of him or not, but...
There's those funny TV shows too, like the
campy
Fatal
lines,
Fury.
Over-sexualization.
I
mean, that's the anime stuff.
Yeah, with like Mai's boots.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know how they stayed in there for an animation. It's animated very well, do not get me wrong.
Well, of course that's going to be animated very well. But you have to tell the animators, all right, what part are we going to spend all our time animating? I'm going to do Mai's boobs jiggling.
So here's the funny thing. We're watching Smash Brothers Ultimate announcement trailers, and I was like, I know that character from an anime, Terry Bogard. And now it's just like, that's a video game.
He's from a fighting game, Kim.
I just want the internet to know I was way into anime before I got more into video games. So I watched so many video game animes without knowing that they were video games.
They were about video games.
Like, I recently learned that Bastard came from a video game.
Please tell me Kirby and Donkey Kong, at least.
Okay, I knew that. I knew those were video games. But also, like, other things, I was trying to think of other ones that I did not know. I remember you were playing Deetlit in Wonderland, and I was like, that's Record of Lodos War. I know who that character is, but at least that was first. She wasn't a video game character first. She was a novel first.
Yeah,
it was a novel.
That series is really convoluted.
Yeah. That is a very, like, twisty-turny, Japanese D&D. I'm just gonna put it that way.
Yeah, it's just Japanese D&D.
Yeah, but there were a lot of animes that I've watched the Battle Arena Toshinden anime, and I've played the video game, so there are just a ton of fighting ones. They like to do those a lot. I've seen the Street Fighter animes. Yeah. I've seen Darkstalkers, Night Warriors anime. They translated that one. That was on like Kids WB for a while or something like that.
Right. So there's also the Persona ones, and we were watching the Shin Megami Tensei animations as well.
There's some more out there.
We haven't finished, or I don't even think started the Persona 3 and 4.
We haven't, because I want to finish the games first.
Oh, right, yeah.
So,
that makes sense.
That makes logical sense. I don't want things to be spoiled.
Yeah, because after watching the Persona 5 one, after we had both played the game...
Oh my god, what happened there?
A huge problem with this is Persona 5 is animated beautifully. And if you have the balls to animate something to try and tell that story...
That Atlas has
and
done...
I can one-to-one look at the game and go, this looks hideous. And then, it wouldn't even be passable normally, but the animation quality in the Persona 5 is so bad.
Also, we realized when you watch the Persona 5 animation, I think I watched the anime, but I knew the story. So, but I didn't quite play it all through yet.
I think I would stand up eventually and be like, they ruined this whole palace!
And I was watching it, and I'm like, if I knew nothing about this, I would not be able to follow this.
Yeah, you're like, how on earth are in one episode? It's like 15-minute episodes or something like that. They're really short.
But I think they did redeem themselves when they made Persona 5 Daybreakers. It's like some additional story where they go and do some side quests. So that's not in the game. So
oh yeah, it doesn't pick off the fact, and this is the big problem. The animation ends preemptively at what would be like the worst possible ending of Persona 5, really, if you chose to turn your game off at that point, because it's not actually the end. Right. And it's completely misleading. It's very underwhelming if someone doesn't know anything about it. And then, of course, like, if you don't know anything about it, you're watching it like, wait, who was Kanashiro again? What was up with that other guy? Are we going to get back to that guy?
Right, it was just like flash.
Yeah, are we done with that villain?
Constant.
How many villains are there? What's going on? Because the game itself is gargantuan, and you're trying to, like, speed through these stories super quickly. You're like, all right, so we have a new party member who needs their own awakening of their own persona while we're trying to go into a new palace and show a new villain and tell the villain story.
This is a 100-hour game, and you are trying...
100-hour if you're going quick.
Right.
Yeah.
So... But I think they redeemed themselves when they did make Daybreakers. They had a lot better animation budget, and it's just kind of a side story, and so it worked. It worked a lot better.
Yeah, the one we watched is terrible. That's probably why I'm not excited to watch the Persona 3 and Persona 4 ones. I don't know. They could be okay. The Shin Megami Tensei stuff we watched, though, now, Shin Megami Tensei, some of them were just based directly off of the book. Kind of a Witcher situation.
That is a tangled mess.
Oh boy, it is. And honestly, some of them were okay. I felt kind of like Akira vibes from them. Not animated nearly as well.
The first one I was like, this is a little confusing because it was based off of the novel. But the second one we watched, I was like, I enjoy this. This is fine.
They're okay.
For being as old as they are. Basically post-apocalyptic world. Somebody figures out they're a demon. They have to go fight God. Typical stuff. So
yeah. Oh shoot.
And it's old 90s animation, so the animation quality is usually a lot better.
So can we finally end this giant episode by talking about one that was okay?
No, because we still have a giant list.
Oh my goodness, we'll have to blast through that list.
Okay, let's go. Okay. We kind of briefly talked about Silent Hill.
Okay, Silent Hill, like I said before, that kind of translates really well to a film, and it kind of works out. I don't think they did a great job with it.
We made fun of the movie the entire time we watched it.
Yeah, I think at least it had like good tense scenes with some of the characters and creatures. Like, you got like the creepy nurse, you got the pyramid head, and that kind of stuff is all there, and you got the foggy area with the zombie looking things. Like, sure, and you're trying to like find the girl and the weird civilization that's living in this.
Cults, yeah,
like it works well enough. The thing is, like, as an adaptation, of course, you're going to be disappointed because it's not telling.
It's not the.
Yeah, and what people really love about Silent Hill is mostly in 2, where it's this psychological dive into one man losing his mind, and not so much the what happens, and that's what the movie was, which. It's the what happens. So, like, in that essence, it's better than most of these. It's fine. I would still say it's probably like a 4 out of 10 movie, so it's fine.
It's an average movie. It's fine. I think we watched it as like one of our Halloween marathon things one year. Yeah, we just pulled it out.
For Halloween, for fun spooky time, sure, give it a go.
Yeah, okay.
It's fine. Doom. Can I talk about Doom?
You can talk about Doom. I never watched it.
Okay, I'll be really quick. Okay. I think it's got like John Cena, and it has oh, it's so corny and so bad, it has nothing to do with Doom. Like, absolutely nothing to do with Doom.
There's, like, no plot in Doom anyway.
But at least there's, like, okay, if you're going to go to the bare minimum...
There's an aesthetic, I guess.
The bare minimum with Doom, you have angry white guy Marine with big guns shoots demons in mazes. That's it. None of those things happen. And, of course, to make it even worse, a friend of mine who was really into Doom, he wanted to specifically watch, like, the uncut or unrated version of it because he loved Doom, and he said, well, it's going to be really gory. It's going to have all the demons and stuff, and he wants to watch that one, like the cacodemons splitting in half with chainsaws. That's what he wanted to see. And he buys this, and we, like, all our friends, we go to watch this, and we are like, oh my god, this is not at all what we were expecting. This is, once again, one of those directors, like, I don't know anything about that. What do you mean? Oh, it's a game. Oh, it's a game where they shoot. Okay, so there's guns in it. That's the end. Like, it is, it's so disturbing. There was one scene in particular that is, like, vividly scarred in my memory of this topless zombie chick who, like, turns around and has the most disgusting things hanging off of her chest, and we all, like, gagged at the same time. It's just a gross movie, and it has nothing to do with its source material. It's called Doom. That's it. So don't watch that one, please.
All right, just keep moving on. Uncharted.
Uncharted, yeah. Okay, this is okay.
This is an okay movie.
I'm not a big fan of Tom Holland, but he plays a decent young Nathan Drake. I think like he can do like the snappy, witty Nathan Drake kind of character.
Yeah, well,
I love the Nolan North. The Nolan North cameo made me so happy. Yeah. Seeing him in the movie,
and they make those cuts to like they reference the game sometimes
in really weird, uncomfortable ways for me, because I was watching the movie saying, all right, I'm going to pretend this is just like a retelling or just its own universe, right? And it kind of is.
Which it is, yeah. So.
But unfortunately, like the end of the movie leads into the first game, which now makes me have a ton of questions. Like, hold on. Then how come in Uncharted 3, when the exact same plane scene happened, Nate's not like, I hate it when this happens to me, you know, like...
So they do kind of retcon their own things,
it's really weird.
But it's an enjoyable movie.
That's another one where, like, the game itself, you could watch a game movie of Uncharted, and it's almost as enjoyable as just playing the game.
Right.
Because Uncharted really is just a cinematic action movie that you get to play the in-between parts.
We had gotten Uncharted and Monster Hunter at the same time to watch it. We watched Monster Hunter first, and I put off watching Uncharted for so long.
Because of how bad
it was. And I was so mad, because I got to the end of Uncharted and I was like, I actually really enjoyed that. That was over the top in the places it needed to be, and I found it funny. So
it's probably the best of the adaptations on our list today. I don't love it, but it's okay. Like I said, I have problems with it.
I rate it like a 7.
Yeah.
Like if
I think they villainize Sully a little too much.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Sully's better as like the lovable
but they were trying to create a conflict between him and the main character.
See, and I don't like that.
I don't know. I get it.
One thing I did enjoy, though, without spoiling stuff, they do surprise you and undercut what you thought was the villain for a new one, in a way that makes a lot of sense for the plot. And most movies are too chicken to do that kind of thing, but the games do it. So that was something I was like, that's clever, because the game didn't do that particular twist, but like that's an Uncharted kind of thing.
I mean, you also kind of saw it coming, so... I mean, you do in Uncharted.
Not to that degree. Not to what they did. So it was surprising. Another good one. Another good movie.
Okay. Good.
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, Detective Pikachu.
Defective Pikachu.
Have you seen those pictures? No. Detective Pikachu. I actually thoroughly enjoy this movie.
When I watched this movie, I think we actually watched it in the theater.
We did watch it in
I remember leaving it saying, that was the best video game adaptation I've ever seen. And now Uncharted, I'm on the fence for both of those movies, honestly.
It's not true to the Detective Pikachu lore.
And it is also really unsettling with the hyper-realistic Pokemon.
But that's an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, some of them I'm cool with. Like Pikachu, he looks cute. He's fine. But then, like, when you put like weird scales on everything, and you know, Jigglypuff looks like this slimy, gross. I'm like, what are you doing? So some of them I was a little disappointed in seeing, and you see a lot of the same Pokemon everywhere. But of course, it's the Super Mario Brothers thing. Easter eggs in the background everywhere.
You gotta copy and paste a lot of them though, because they're putting so much detail into the models.
Right.
And
you go through a really boring scene where this kid is going to a new city to get some paperwork because he's an insurance guy and his dad is missing.
Nothing to do with the video game.
No, it has nothing to do with the game. And of course, he's walking through these things and you're like, there's a Lickitung on the bus. It's so cute. And then he goes up to the windows to get his paperwork and there's a Trico and he's like stuck like a gecko on the glass and he's sleeping. That's what the movie is.
Right, but I mean, that's like every Pokemon movie you get excited for what you see. But it's nice to see them in nice little 3D, like, in our realm. It's a little bit different.
I'm surprised that, like, the actual narrative core of what Detective Pikachu is, of trying to find the protagonist's father who has gone missing. It works really well.
But you know what Uncharted and Detective Pikachu both do that make them a little bit better? They're not trying to copy the story from the video game. They're doing
Detective
their
Pikachu
own
kind
thing
of is.
a little bit.
Detective Pikachu. Okay, so the main disconnect with Detective Pikachu is it's a million little missions that you do with him.
Right.
It's a huge stretch. This is really like just focusing on where's your dad. You know, like, and that's fine. Uncharted is usually like this big linear rush, and it kind of works in a movie when you pick up the pace a bit. So, not a big deal. And also, I think if you watch some of the Uncharted as like all the cutscenes together, it's about as long as a movie. I also like that they weren't
just like, I'm going to do the story of the first game. I like that they didn't do that, because then I would have been really mad.
I don't know, because then I would have been like, yes, now they're going to do 2. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I love 2. Oh, now they're going to do 3. I love 3. But they kind of
combined 4 into this, and it's a little bit of an
weirdly enough, we were just talking about Detective Pikachu and Uncharted at the same time. Henry Jackman does the music for both.
He does!
Yeah, he did the I think, Uncharted 4 music, and he did the Detective Pikachu music. I found that out when getting the music for...
Okay, but also, here's my other winner. Clover will watch Detective Pikachu till the end.
I want to apologize for the audio mess up here that gives us that strange echo. I'm not sure what's causing it, but luckily it is only happening for a little bit of time, so just give it a second, it'll go away. Yes!
So... Yeah. I think that's a winner.
Well, she loves Pokemon.
She loves Pikachu, so that's probably another reason.
Yeah, but it's trying to, one, tell a decent story. It's not, doing a popular Pokemon game.
She can tell who the bad guy is, you know?
Detective Pikachu is not a popular game. So this is them taking, like, okay, there's a good story material here to make a film, and they translated it, but also made a film that was different enough. Not because it's trying to stray from the source material, but so that it's trying to keep people's attention while telling a decent story. This doesn't happen when people make game adaptations, so that's why it's, I think, one of the best ones that you can watch.
So then if we're going for another great one that you can watch, let's talk about the Phoenix Wright anime.
Yeah, I think we kind of
and the movie. This. We haven't watched the movie.
That's true. Yeah, the live action movie.
The live action movie.
We watched the animation. I think you can find them on YouTube. Is that how we watched them?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, watch them on YouTube.
Anyway, the Phoenix Wright anime, on point.
Play the game first.
Play the game. Don't be spoiled to it. The animation's good for the show.
It will spoil, like, what the big twists in the story are, because it really is a visual novel game.
And it will spoil what you're looking for. Like,
I know.
In the visual, like if you're
playing... You will not have fun with the game if you watch the animation first.
And we've just seen trailers of the live action one. We did not watch it. I kind of want to, because they were trying to make it really campy, but it was a little weird. It was a little weird. It wasn't really working for me.
I kind of threw up in my mouth looking at it, so I don't really want to.
It was a little strange. No. But yeah, highly encourage that one if you've played Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, see, when I'm talking about Uncharted and Detective Pikachu being the best adaptations, I'm thinking of movies.
Right.
Anime is a lot easier to do, so I don't really think about that too much.
Right, like, but there's also
Phoenix
bad
Wright's
examples.
Probably the best, and Castlevania's okay.
Bad examples of the animes.
Oh, lots of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the one that makes me the saddest.
What's that?
Xenosaga!
Oh, the Xenosaga animation's really bad. I'm sure you've all seen the Xenosaga animation, right?
Okay, it was on Anime on Demand on Time Warner. So that's how I saw it first, after I played the first game.
Okay, it's fair. So you didn't seek it out or anything. You actually just, like, happened to see it on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, the problem is it really disrespects its source material. It doesn't let characters...
art is, like, atrocious. Like, I do not like the art in it.
Character arcs don't work because they don't let characters die at certain times when they're supposed to. It doesn't let character stories conclude. Certain whole episodes can be like, you know what? What if Momo was Cardcaptor Sakura? And they just do, like, this ridiculous, like, over-the-top magical girl scene.
Don't recommend Xenosaga anime.
It's so bad.
Don't recommend. Okay, I do want to talk about another anime here really quickly, and it is the Dot Hack animes.
I didn't watch that.
I absolutely love Dot Hack Sign. I know a lot of people don't like it, but there's a fun thing when you get the video games of the original Dot Hack, Infection, Outbreak, Mutation, and Quarantine.
All the little pictures line up on the DVD or the little discs on the side.
A little grunty. Yeah. But with each of those discs, you also get a DVD that covers an anime that is happening in the real world as you are playing in the game.
That's kind of like a Watchmen's Black Freighter kind of scenario.
So that's one thing, but then there's Dot Hack Sign, which is an anime that was on Adult Swim, so I know a lot of people probably saw it. They did their own separate story. They just took the world and the source material, and they made I say the world, anybody who knows .hack, that was funny, guys.
Yeah.
And they do there's own a million of those separate story, and then there's actually an anime episode that ties them both together at one point. Mm-hmm. And then the other .hack games happen, and I just don't like those as much. And then there's that anime. But I think .hack does a really good job of blending the anime and the video game together. And I think they're a good example of video game adaptations.
And I didn't see it, so good. I'm glad to hear that there's actually good ones out there.
I think they're pretty good, except for if you see Key of the Twilight. That one's a weird one. Just because, like, everybody's, like, a young kid in that. It was almost like a chibi version of .hack, so that one's a little bit weird. Mm-hmm. But I do encourage, I enjoy .hack sign, and... I've
heard there's a decent adaptation animation for League of Legends, but I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So I'll take your word for it. I'm staying well away from that one.
Okay, we've already kind of covered Pokemon. Do we need to talk about Pokemon and like Digimon?
Yeah, see, Pokemon's like a media franchise.
Yeah.
Digimon also was trying to do the media franchise thing as well. So Pokemon Detective Pikachu, we singled that one out as different than, like, Pokemon the first movie, which was supposed to be a film about the anime characters, which were created for anime.
Not about the video game.
Right, so that I kind of see like...
But then there's the manga that's the weird in-between the video game and the anime.
That's the thing, it's a media franchise. There's a trading card game, there's the plushies, there's everything else that they're trying to sell you.
Yeah, I mean, they made Yu-Gi-Oh! Into a video game, too, and that's kind of all over the place, too, so... Yeah, so I don't feel like we really need to talk too much about those.
No, that's about it. So yeah. I would say Final Fantasy has an interesting one, because this was actually made by...
several interesting ones, but yes.
We're going to talk about the one that you know. I'd say the interesting one is Advent Children, because this is actually supposed to be kind of a sequel-ish to Final Fantasy VII.
It is a sequel. It says, at the beginning of it says takes 2 years after the events of FF7.
I say sequel-ish because I'm just not happy with it. But it's fine. Because at the time,
I'm happier with it than the prequel, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't like Crisis Core. But the thing is, like, it's on that same level. The thing that I'd say Advent Children did that was really, really good for the games, which we never see anything good happen from these adaptations ever.
I was squealing when Advent Children came out.
Well, here, look at what Cloud looked like before.
I was so excited.
And then all of a sudden, at this time, people are watching CG animated VeggieTales, okay? Like, nobody looked this good.
The Spirits Within did come out before the Advent Children did.
Sure.
And that was also hyper-realistic people, so...
But it's not, like...
It's not a Final Fantasy, like, game.
Exactly. So, FF7 Advent Children, though, is not only, like, trying to continue a story, but it's trying to modernize their graphics so well and push it to the edge to where it's, like, the ideal version of what they wanted it to look like. Because even on the PlayStation 1, you had those cutscenes where you weren't, like, the blocky, silly characters anymore, and, you could actually see Tifa's boobs jiggling around the room in a ridiculous fashion, and Barrett's even bigger, and, Cloud is able to ride a motorcycle, because they wanted it to look like that, but of course the game system couldn't handle it. Nowadays, we have the Final Fantasy VII Remake series because of Advent Children. People are like, I want that game to look like this. And it's mostly about the looks for this, not so much the story, because I think the story's kind of weak, personally. It's more like, oh, you thought you finished everything, but we're going to retread some stuff because there's still some Genova cells out there. Let's bring Sephiroth back.
Yeah, the story's really weak for Advent Children because you're like, no, I killed Rufus. Shut the hell up.
There's a bunch of stuff in there that you're like, what are you doing?
But I also hear there's a director's cut that adds a lot more scenes that makes it a little bit less confusing.
The big problem I have with it is the ending of Final Fantasy VII that I don't want to spoil. You shouldn't do anything after that point. You should stop. Like, it's done. Please. Like, it's one of those endings that you're like, it's like the Inception, you see, like, the coin spinning thing, like, you're not entirely positive on what it means.
You're not sure.
Advent Children just, like, okay.
Clearly that's what happened.
What happened, and then because you brought Sephiroth back yet again, you kind of undermined the entire point of the game.
Right.
So, Yeah, that's kind of disappointing. But still, like, it looks great, and it did a lot for the series.
Ecstatic. I think I watched it 2 or 3 times the first week I had it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't in theaters over here. It just went straight to
with
DVD,
that?
so
it would have done really well,
It would have done fantastic.
I think it would have done well.
I would have gone to see it.
I probably would have gone to see it, and I didn't even finish playing the game at that point.
And yeah, I was just seeing blocky characters, and you know what's fun? I was watching it, my dad and I would play it together, so he clearly knew the characters, but then my mom knew some of the characters too as we're watching it, and he was like, she's like, is that Vincent?
Is that Yuffie? Why does Kate Sith sound Scottish?
So like, it was kind of fun, like, finally, like, my mom even recognized these Polly characters that she saw on the TV that
Mog
I was
playing. Missing, though, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes.
And Mog is in Rebirth.
I'm so excited. That's going to be great. So, yeah, it's good. If you're a fan of FF7, I do say
it is one of the better ones, honestly. It's fine.
Yeah, and then there's another, so they like to do this a lot, and I think we recently had a fan dubbing of it with FF7 where they did this whole thing with Zack and Cloud. We
watched this, didn't we?
It was like 30, 40 minutes or something like that.
That's a lot of my life I don't remember. Tell me about this. What?
But it essentially starts where, like, the game Crisis Core starts with the Nibelheim arc.
They want to do that so many times.
So many times. And then there's a whole other anime where you're just dealing with the
walking
Turks.
Into the fire is what she's
You're
referencing.
just dealing with the Turks. No, I'm talking about the whole animation.
I know. I'm saying, like, that scene, they want to animate every single time, even if it's not relevant.
So
like, they did it in Final Fantasy VII Remake, when that scene shouldn't have happened yet.
They were like,
now I'm really curious. Are they just going to, like, do it again when they get
to keep doing it? I bet they're going to do it every game until we get to that point.
Well, even though it's already happened, do it again in the third one.
It's just going to keep happening.
It's just a meme.
So, yeah, I do enjoy the spin-off stuff that came off of FF7.
Yeah, it's fine.
Media-wise. I mean, like, movies and the OVAs that we have. And we have a few, like, shorts with the Turks and things like that.
I just wish Square Enix would give their other Final Fantasies as much love as they would.
It would be great.
Yeah.
That would be really nice.
There's a lot of good ones that they're just not doing anything
I just want FF10 as a movie. I would watch that.
That would be a great film.
It would be a really good film. Ooh. You could cut out a lot of it, too. Honestly, and I think it would still be okay.
You know what would be really good is if you had FF6 as a 2-part film. Kind of like, you know, like how Titanic was like a 2 VHS situation thing? That's what I think FF6 should... You just dated
yourself really hard there.
Yeah, I watched Titanic on VHS tapes, and I had to, like, switch them. And I would intentionally go like, the first one's kind of boring. Let's just watch the ship sink. Never mind, I'm a terrible person. I was also, like 8?
Did you know... Well, that's really off topic, but there was actually a Titanic movie that came out 2 months after the Titanic sunk.
That's terrible!
And that's why it got burnt and we don't hear anything about it.
That's like if you made a movie about 9/11, like, in November, like, of 2011. 2001. Like, what are you doing?
That was random movie fact I just learned the other day.
Oh my god. That's so horrible.
And actually one of the survivors from the Titanic actually plays in it.
Oh, that's weird. That's really weird.
So, and
I'm sure they were going out of their way to... This is not what the...
This is random information. Okay, did I have anything else on this movie adaptations list? We're just going to talk about development hell.
Yeah, there's a bunch that are, like, supposedly never coming out, and Monster Hunter was one of those, and it eventually did. But also Metal Gear Solid supposedly has been in the works for, like, 15 years or something. And that's another one of those games that, like, it needs to be a game. You know, like, Watchmen didn't... I mentioned Watchmen earlier. Watchmen translated terribly to a film because it's not a story. It's something that has to be told as a comic. Do that same thing, but as a video game. Metal Gear Solid is that video game it must be in this medium. But the story is super compelling. And it would work really well in a movie, but... It's also in development hell forever because they want to make sure they're doing it correctly from what I've been reading. So, of course, nothing's happening. And then investors are, like, pulling the plug on stuff. And It's one of those that if it happens, I'm going to be really, really scared.
Watch Escape from New York and just be happy.
Yeah, Escape from New York is the Metal Gear Solid movie.
Just watch it.
And it's okay. It's actually a pretty good movie.
It's pretty decent. I've actually considered watching it again.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Lately. So.
Yeah, it even has basically a Vulcan Raven fight. It's obviously Metal Gear Solid. He gets injected with something and then just slowly
he doesn't know what it is.
And he has to run through the escape. It's obviously...
His name is Snake.
Yeah, they named him Snake as well.
So
Kojima is
a big
much
fan of this movie.
Another movie that supposedly is just never happening is To the Moon. It's another one similar to Phoenix Wright. This might be one of the best video game film adaptations ever because it's just a story. Right? And you want to turn it into a movie, which makes perfect sense. It would be amazing to see that story told as a film. And I could give it to people who I know are never going to play video games. Even something like that and say, check this out. This is a really great story, isn't it? I really loved that. Is it ever going to get made? Who knows? I mean, Imposter Factory probably slowed that down. And they're also working on some other posty stuff. Supposedly they are done with the To the Moon saga. So the film should maybe eventually happen. I don't know. Be something to keep a lookout for because that has some potential.
So yeah, we got that's really everything I had on my list. So.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that was really it. I mean, I know plenty of animes that I've seen that are video games and stuff like that.
And there's tons of other movies we didn't even talk about. We didn't even talk about how bad the Mortal Kombat and the Street Fighter movies are, but of course they are. Those are the ones that set that stipulation up, and I feel like it was made in Hollywood. The higher-ups and the people with the money looked at it clearly this is not worth our time to make these, not because it wasn't something that could have been done well, but because it came from a video game, which was their horrible misunderstanding. And hopefully now that the Mario movie has broken a ridiculous amount of sales records, we're going to start seeing some actual good, faithful video game adaptations.
Yeah, but I also just don't want to because video games should be video games. And I have the same complaints about a lot of comics. I hate when they get adaptations. I know. It's a great comic. Leave it as a comic.
But more people are playing Mario games now because of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Which is good.
That's a great thing.
So we should make a Metroid movie is what you're telling me.
More people are disappointed in Sonic the Hedgehog games because of the Sonic the Hedgehog disappointing movies. More people are probably playing Uncharted because of the Uncharted movie.
I don't know. Every time I've brought that up to people, they're like, it's a video game?
Oh,
so well, I get a lot of that.
Yeah, I guess you could see that. Witcher also would be one of those.
There was another adaptation series we didn't talk about with Naughty Dog.
There's a Witcher TV show, by the way, that's actually decent. I haven't gotten a chance to watch that yet.
The animated one?
The one with Vesemir, yeah. Didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
But we didn't even talk about the Last of Us show that's out. That people have brought up to me, and I'm like, I'm not watching it. I wasn't that into the game, so I'm like, I don't even want to watch it.
I heard terrible things.
So that was another adaptation we didn't
so
talk
hilariously
about. It was so bad, we didn't even talk about it.
Okay, so there's the level of bad where the end product is really terrible, but then there's camera crew people walking around with stage lights in the background of some of your shots. This is in the actual TV show. And you're like, oh my god.
Thanks. It's Netflix, right?
I don't remember. There's not trying, and then there's not trying.
Come on, the people who made Blair Witch went out there with a camera and nothing else, and you guys can't do it.
Yeah. So if you would ask me, if there's any game that you would want to see made into a movie, what would it be? I would mostly say no. Because I don't want to
say no.
I don't want to see stuff ruined.
You would say Metroid because you want them to make more Metroid games.
That's not actually the reason. I think you could tell a really compelling Metroid story.
Oh, yeah, but not the people who are writing these now.
God, no. So here, if I was telling a Metroid story, I would have, a very busy opening where you're, Samus is training and, there's lots of people. She's at the Galactic Federation and sent off to do her first mission at Zebes. And then for the rest of the film, there are no words. It's just this really creepy isolation horror movie.
That's what they would call a French foreign film or something like that.
But really the one to do would be Super Metroid because doing the twist of Mother Brain at the end and the thing with it's more tense, trying to chase down the Metroid. It's more, there's much more to do with it.
I already told you I would do FF10, I think.
FF10 would be a great film too.
You could really just cut out some of the extra fat pieces in there, and you could even throw out that guy I hate, Seymour, and it would be fine.
It would be an amazing movie is Ghost Trick. You want a good Halloween game? Play Ghost Trick. That game
Halloween,
is so
guys.
good. Well, yeah, for us right now, we're actually filming it. It's not even Halloween yet. We have to film these all in advance, but still, I had Halloween decorations in the background of the video in case you were just listening to us. So there you go. But it was just leftovers from my Resident Evil playing with myself episode. But whew, that was a lot of adaptations.
And we didn't even I didn't even make a comprehensive list. Like, there's so many more out there.
But still, I know. But there's a lot of them that really suck. But there's some good ones.
Maybe if we start seeing some more and some other ones, we'll do another.
I have faith that it's going to be better lately because the video game industry, in terms of money, is dwarfing the movie industry. And that's the only reason that these movie higher-ups are looking at it and saying this might be worth doing.
I do have one more complaint. Stop teasing at a sequel at the end of your credits.
Oh my god.
I hate this.
That's all they did with Gormagala.
I don't want to know that there's another film coming. That should be a standalone thing where I am happy with this film. And what if it doesn't happen?
Oh, I know. Like, and some of them aren't so bad. They're just like, oh, that's cute. Like, I don't want to spoil. Of course, there's one at the end of the Mario movie, but like the credits start going by, and I get up to like get a glass of water, and I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm calling. There's gonna be an end credit scene and I name a character. I just happen to guess the wrong one that they teased. But still, like, of course they're gonna do that because they want to make more money. And they want people who watched the first one to be on the lookout for more of it later because they want you to be on the lookout for more money.
And I think the thing that really set me off the most about this is actually a video game that did it first. Thanks, Kingdom Hearts. Thanks for giving us that.
Yeah. Kingdom Hearts was... if it really just was that first one, I probably wouldn't hate that game so much.
I don't think you would, no.
No, it's what it did to itself. It kept shooting itself in the foot over and over again.
And there's a manga of that.
Yeah, of shooting yourself in those giant, colossal Mickey Mouse shoes over and over again with Leon from Final Fantasy VIII, everyone's favorite protagonist, Leon, shooting himself in the foot with his gun.
That's terrible.
Anyway, I'm going to stop this Mountain Monster episode. I have to somehow edit this for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes in this video's description. For those of you on YouTube, though, remember to like the video and subscribe for more. And be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you would like to hear us cover in the future. And special thanks to all of our amazing Patreon members.
Bye-bye.
I'm really sweaty.
I think you gave me your sweat.